Welcome to Transformer CEOs with me, Erik Schmidt. This week, I'm excited to introduce you to MC Gasco-Buisson, CEO of Unilever Prestige. Things that really stood out to me are her incredible engineering mindset and systemic thinking that she brings to everything that she does. She describes the set of paradoxes that all Transformer CEOs face, and she confirms that for any transformation to be successful, the people and organization in your company needs to be 100% match fit. In addition to Transformer CEOs, I run my own successful advisory and consulting company working with CEOs, chairmen, and investors to deliver successful business transformations. I hope you enjoy what you're going to see and hear from MC. I certainly find her energy inspiring. So MC, Women in Power List 2025, Interbrand, top 100 global brand with Pandora, and now CEO of CEOs at Unilever Prestige. So was it your 25 years at P&G that prepared you for all that?
Don't age me, Erik. It was 23 years at P&G. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of gratitude for my time at P&G. P&G is a phenomenal general management and marketing school. And so I learned a lot about leadership, about how to run a business, about what are the right questions to ask, how to frame problems, how to focus organizations, and obviously how to run global brands at P&G. So yes, I think they definitely, those 23 years were preparation, but I would say the preparation started earlier even, Erik. I was one of those kids who, even at a very young age, I had a big dream. You know, I was a bit dissatisfied with the state of affairs of my current state at age 5. And I said, you know, I want to live an international life. I want to lead big things. And so I figured early on that a great education was going to be a good pathway to that. And I was very lucky to have parents who really supported that and who invested in giving me a great education. And then I went on to university. I wanted to go to the university in the US. I grew up in between Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, so in the Caribbean, but I really always wanted to have an international life. And I thought the best way to do that was to go to college in the United States. So I went to I kind of went to the most prestigious school I could get into, basically. And I picked the degree that I found that was the hardest so that I could prove something. Lots of young wisdom there, Erik.
Yeah.
And then I joined P&G. And so I think the education started earlier in my life when I kind of set an end state for myself. I really wanted to grow and really live a broader experience. And then P&G was a phenomenal choice.
All right.
As a first company, yes.
So did your CEO ambitions really start at age 5?
Not really, because I didn't know what a CEO was at age 5. But what started was a dissatisfaction with the status quo. I can tell you that. Mm-hmm. I've always been hungry for, not hungry like literally I'm hungry. So I've been blessed with, a family who could provide and support me. But I've been hungry in spirit. I've always wanted to experience bigger challenges, bigger things, and go to new places and challenge myself in new ways. So at very young age, I wanted to make a mark somewhere. I just didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know where, how. CEO didn't really come into the kind of my mind specifically until years later when I was growing up at P&G, and I realized I was in R&D for the first few years of my career. And I realized that I was missing something. I was really enjoying my technical work. I love solving problems, solving complex problems, working with people to do things that have not been done before. That's always been really exciting to me. And P&G and my engineering roles gave me a lot of that. But I realized there was a part of me that was missing. And that was the part that created visions, that that imagined a new business where there was none, or that could convince the consumer to consider something they had not considered. So kind of like the more managerial side of things. And I think the reason I had that hunger is because I had not kind of put it all together. But my father was a businessman. My mother ran her own retail small business. And so I was surrounded by business my whole life. And when I went into engineering, it was fun. It gave me great learning. It gave me great tools. I generally think engineering was a great foundation for general management and marketing. But I wasn't really touching those business sides of the equation. And I started to miss it. And so I said, if I really want to lead a big business someday, maybe I should move to the business side. I was very, very fortunate that P&G allowed me to make that jump, because I basically did a massive career pivot, moved into marketing and general management. And that's when the idea of general management, which CEO is in that path, that kind of started to crystallize for me. Before it was like, I want to lead stuff, you know? It was more general.
But it sounds like, listening to you as well, that your mom and dad were quite an inspiration with what they did.
Big time. But very different paths. My parents, neither of my parents were able to finish high school, okay? My father's father died when he was young, and he had to go to work very young. But he taught himself so many things. My father was a learner, and he eventually started his own business. And I grew up watching my father build a business from nothing, and my mother working side to side with him. My mother later in life decided to go back and finish her high school degree. But what my parents taught me was integrity, hard work, ambition, doing the right things, even when people are not watching. They told me that I could be anything and do anything. And I think that's probably, so they were role models, not in the sense that they all went to, X college or that college, or they didn't have that kind of life, but they taught me that I could do whatever I really put my mind onto.
Fantastic. What a great start, right? And so thinking about your CEO-ship, you're now in your first CEO-ship with Unilever. Congratulations. We know these roles are tough to get, even tougher to keep. So what's going to keep the focus for you?
So tougher to get, I felt really ready. I think you touched on it before. I've had a series of general management experience, brand management experiences, and I felt ready, actually. But even feeling that way, I did a ton of listening to biographies from great CEOs, just to kind of hone in on. So I'm a big learner, Erik. I learn constantly. And so I felt that, I am ready, and what I don't have, I will get, in terms of what will keep the focus, I've always been really interested in understanding at the root cause what needs changing in a business and what needs preserving. And that probably goes back to my engineering degree. Engineers are very good at diagnosing situations and complex problems.
Yep.
And so I'm very, very focused on what is amazing about this business that we can do more with, that we can build competitive, sustainable advantage with, and where are there opportunities to improve, to strengthen, to synergize, or to just change altogether. And that's a lot of what I do when I first join a role. And then crystallizing that into a strategic set of choices that will, by combining our strengths with those areas that we're improving on, give us ability to grow sustainably ahead of the market. That's what I'm focused on. And I believe if I continue to focus on that, I continue to bring great people along with me, some people that were already in the business. We had an amazing team, and also some new people who are joining us. We will be able to fulfill on our ambitions for this business and even beyond that. And so I think the focus is on that, is what are the big things that we are amazing at that we need to do more of and continue to push on, and what are the things that we need to refine and adjust, and some of them leave behind.
Yeah, perfect. And it's fascinating because you talk about the engineering mindset, and I hear it, and I've seen it before from you as well. And it's so true. It's so true. So this is your second stint at Unilever. If I was your boss, or the chairman of Unilever or the CEO of Unilever, what would I have seen in you maybe the first time around that made me want to get you back on the bus?
I've actually thought about asking him that question. I haven't, but I was extremely fortunate that in my first round, when I first joined Unilever, I was actually running global acts. And my charge was extremely clear. The brand has been losing share for many, many years. Turn it around. And when you have such a clear problem statement, and you are somebody like me who loves an amazing challenge, that was just a perfect brief for me. So I got the fortune of working with Fernando at that time. He was the head of Latin America. I was running Latin America. And I also got the pleasure of working with Priya, who's actually the woman who brought me into this role with Fernando, and the prior CEO, Hein. Priya was running beauty and well-being in India. And I got to connect with those two people. The way I saw them, they were senior leaders to me, but I saw them as my customers. I was running global Axe, and Axe was one of the brands in their region. And it was not doing well, and they needed it to do better. And so I was able to work with them in making sure that we got this beautiful brand back to health and growth. And that allowed me to be exposed to both of them and them to see a little bit of me. So to answer your question on what Fernando would have seen or what Priya would have seen, I would definitely want to ask them. But I would probably say that is some of the things that I was talking to you about. When I look at how I operate, I'm kind of a weird one. When I was a child, I would ask for a gift for my birthday, and I would ask for a microscope. And then when it was time to do art, I would write poetry. So recently, I heard the idea that being a general manager or effective leader is about being a farmer and being a poet. Mm-hmm. I'm a bit of both. I'm a farmer in that I want to plan. I plan and I make sure that I set the seeds at the right time and that I water and that I set the systems and that I take care of things. So, incredibly disciplined person. Mm-hmm. At the same time, nothing makes me more excited than a great advertising campaign or a brand that is just really singing and looking exceptional, or to see a visual that just makes my heart pump. So that balance of discipline and almost engineering-like systems management, seeing the business as a system and what are all the pieces that need to work together to get a business to consistent, profitable growth with the eye for how to grow a brand. I think that's probably what they saw. But I would definitely want to ask them. But I think it's that combination of discipline, ability to diagnose, and focus on the things that matter, while also being able to create the magic that is required to get a brand like Axe back into the zeitgeist and connecting with young men. So a bit of a combination of those two things, I would think.
Yeah, and I think I like, again, it's another link to this. It's almost like left brain, right brain, and I've seen you with the very strong analytical skills, but also the creativity that and the EQ that's kind of required in senior leadership roles as well. And the systemic point we'll come back to in a moment later in our conversation. I think that's very interesting too. So I want to move us along the journey. We've talked about you. We've talked about your stakeholders in Unilever. There's another very important group of stakeholders, of course, which, as well as being Power Woman 2025, or Powerless Woman, I should say, 2025, you also have a very important home life.
That's the thing about when I look at my life, I have three big loves. One love is my family, like most people, my family life. Another big love is my work. And the third big love, I would say, is growth, learning constantly. And these are things that fuel me. My family is not just my first big love, it's also my grounding. When I was young, I was relatively young, I met first a man who had 3 little children. And Antoine, Emily, and Charlotte were 6, 7, 4, 2. They were young. And together with their mother, we created this kind of triage, and we helped raise those children. We were all at P&G at the time, actually. And the experience of becoming a stepmother so early in my career was a challenging one. I'm not going to argue. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. It was challenging, particularly because I was so focused also on always learning and on this career thing that was important to me, this ambition that the 5-year-old had set. But over the years, what they've done is that they've grounded me. I never lose sight of the fact that at the end of the day, Erik, the only people that are going to be there for us are our family and our close friends. I've also never lost sight of the fact that so much of what we hear now, the accolades that we get, they're just temporary badges. The minute you leave the role, they go with it. You know, how many people I've heard, oh, you know, I had this big job and everybody was calling me, and the day I retired, nobody called me anymore. And I'm like, well, I fully expect that to happen. But what I know is that my 3 stepchildren, their mother, my husband, and my daughter, we have now a 10-year-old, they will be there for me. I know that, you know? And so my family is not just my first love, they're also my grounding. They keep me grounded. And when work goes insane, which it does at times, my husband is the primary advisor and the primary support. I wouldn't be here without him, you know, and the support of my family. So I started with my parents,
amazing.
Of course.
It's an amazing story. Yeah. And you amplify it so well, MC, as well. And just remind us of what's really important, you know. What would they say about your journey to CEO-ship?
They said, well, we knew you were going to go for something like that. I've always been trying to learn and grow. I mean, Erik, I'm such a geek, right? Like, I've been listening to leadership books and reading leadership books my whole life. I'm a studier of leadership. It's something I love, growth, leadership. So they're happy. They're supportive of me. They remind me that at home I am mom. You know, my daughter does not care at all about what job titles I have. I am mom, and mom needs to be here and pay attention to her. And my husband is my partner, and we are, at home, I'm wife and mom and daughter and all those other things. So it's good. It's grounding that way too.
So from the outside, quite often people see careers like yours and they think, oh, this has been such a smooth ride to the top, you know. But of course, we know differently. There's always setbacks. There's cul-de-sacs that you know, maybe we shouldn't have gone down with the benefit of hindsight, and many other things. What are some of the setbacks you would point to in your journey?
I mean, one massive setback was a kind of personal one. Years ago, I was a director. My younger stepchildren had already kind of grown a lot. And so I found myself with some free time. And you know me, Erik, I'm full of energy. So we were living in Geneva, and I decided to start a business on the side. So a colleague of mine and I started this business, and we worked our tails off for a couple of years. We built it from scratch, created a product, created a supply chain, created all of the stuff. And then we couldn't make it financially viable. The unit economics were just not working. And that was extremely difficult, right? I've had a fairly not straight path by any stretch of the imagination, but it's been a good path. I've learned and grown a lot, and had not had such a financial setback before. This was self-funded. So it was a massive personal and financial setback. And I lost sleep over it. It was tough. And what I realized was a few things. One, actually, talking to you makes me remember this, how amazing my husband is. Because never did he try to make me feel bad for that. He was always supportive. He was like, okay, well, what did we learn? And we keep going. And he was never anything but support. And then I realized what a machine I can be. I mean, I can work endlessly if I'm excited about something. Not sure that's a good thing, but it is true. And then that if I'm going to have a big life and I'm going to make a big impact, I need to be able to pick myself up from big failure. And it is a visible failure, it's a financial failure, is a public failure. I need to be able to pick myself up, and I would not actually do anything different because of what I learned. So once I got that and I forgave myself for that, I just came out stronger from that experience. So that was a big setback, but I don't regret having done it, you see? But it was very painful at the time. And then I became pregnant and then I had to stop trying. So I had my daughter, but yeah, that's only one. Do you want more, Erik?
Sure. Yeah. Whatever this is great. Thank you for being so open as well.
I've had a couple others where it was a question of style. I'm a Latin American woman. I am very passionate. I'm energetic. I spend most of my life in the US now. So sometimes when I'm in Latin America, I feel like very American. Mm-hmm. Now I've lived 10 years in Europe. So I'm kind of a mix of stuff now. Mm-hmm. But at that time, early in my career, I was, fresh off college, very expressed and passionate. And what I learned is that for some people, that kind of what to me is authenticity, which is being myself and being authentically energetic, occurred as either one of two things. Either as, she's kind of like happy-go-lucky, not very smart. Or just too much energy. And I had to learn that early on that, there is a difference between modulating your style and changing who you are. I wasn't willing to change who I am. Fundamentally, I like myself.
Yep.
And I believe that I can contribute being who I am, but that I could modulate some of my energy depending on the people that I was with and what level of, what they were expecting from me. So these are some colleagues they just thought that, somebody who is a bit loud like I was at that time, maybe wasn't so intelligent. I think that's, kind of a weird thing to juxtapose, to be honest with you. But it was what it was being perceived, and I was able to modulate. And so that's just one example. But at that time, I was 21 years old, Erik. It was very difficult for me. It's painful.
So very young, but good on you for holding on to your authenticity as well, but modulating where you needed to. I think that's
modulating where you needed to, and that
smart,
lesson has served me forever after that. But it was a tough one at the time because I was so young.
Brilliant. So, female CEO, there's not many of them, not enough of them. But what next for you? I know you've only been there a year or so, but what does the long term look like for MC?
I got a lot of work to do here, Erik. That's the thing, is that I have never really set a specific step set. I've always had a dream of increasing my level of positive impact and being able to maximize leveraging of my strengths. And I think there's plenty of runway here for me to do that. So that is what I'm focused on. If you were to ask me, okay, look out some years from now, kind of what are you aspiring to? There will probably be something in my journey where I am contributing to a cause that is close to me. Something that is close to me. I am still noodling on what that would be, because the way I am is that I put everything into what I do. Mm-hmm. So it has to be something really important to me. So there'll be, I have some friends who are CEOs of amazing organizations that are not-for-profit, other organizations that are educational. Mm-hmm. I'm very interested in education. It's a huge value for me. So some point in my life's path, I see myself doing something along the lines of that. For now in business, I look to continue to hone in my leadership skills, my ability to get value, to create the most value from businesses. Yeah. And this is the one that I'm doing that on right now. I'm pretty agnostic to industry. I'm most interested in the challenge.
Amazing.
Amazing. What difference can I make?
Great. Yeah. And I can totally see you doing something in the learning space. Clearly, you've benefited so enormously from it. It's something you're very passionate about. Yes. So that your link to business and the challenge is a nice link to where I'd like to go next, which is moving from talking about your journey to CEOship to what have you transformed? So
early on, I realized that So I don't really like to run things like steadily. I get a huge kick from inflection points. So meaning something is going okay and we want to accelerate it. Or something is going down and we want to turn it around. So transformations, either business realignments or turnarounds or significant accelerations, changes in direction. That's what I get my kick from. I love that. And it's probably because it uses a combination of my strengths, right? And we tend to enjoy the things that we're best at. And so back when I think I was actually very early 30s, I was doing some global innovation work on Olay, and it was great. I had an amazing ride in that role. And then it was, okay, what's next? What do I do next? And at that time, I got a bit of a setback because P&G had what they call promotion freeze. So I was ready to promote, but they couldn't promote me because they had a promotion freeze. And my boss told me it could be 2 years, MC. And I mean, let's say that I was not happy about that. That's the understatement. I was not happy. But I'm somebody who quickly turns that energy into something good, right? So that negative energy, I was like, okay, what am I going to do with it? Okay, I can't be promoted. So what am I going to learn instead? So I asked them to give me a hairy problem. And they brought me into this business that was a hairy problem. And it was a personal cleansing business for P&G in North America. And it was declining and it needed to be turned. And I said, okay, that's great. That's a whole big challenge, new things I'm going to learn and do. I got that business back to growth. And within a year and a half, P&G promoted me to the next level. But that was a taste of transformation of a business.
Was that your first taste as well?
I got a taste of it.
Yeah.
Of what it was like to get it. Because before I had done like a lot of innovation things, but this was a current business that was just not doing well. And I got a taste of that. And I thought, whoa, I really like this. And so then I kind of went around almost attracting businesses that required some sort of inflection point. And so I worked on that one. Then I went into P&G fragrances in Geneva. P&G used to own a set of fragrances, and I got that portfolio back to growth. And I can tell you a lot of how we did that, but that was a portfolio. So that was a bigger portfolio choices and figuring out where to focus and what the brands needed and what was the right innovation pace and all of that. We also divested a few things. Then I got into our biggest brand at the time, fragrance brand, and getting that back to number one share, which he had lost. So that was a brand transformation, but I had done now a business transformation, a portfolio transformation, a brand transformation. And I got really hooked into the energy of that. And so years later, when I joined Unilever to turn around Axe, I felt at home. That kind of problem was already home. So Axe, that was a classic. Honestly, it was one of the best. I have so many good assignments. I've loved so many of my jobs, but that was really interesting because, Eric, what happened is they hire me. I moved to London. I start connecting with the team. Literally, I was on the ground about 3 or 4 weeks when COVID hits. And now I am literally trying to turn this global business from a video conference in my little temporary home apartment. I was still in temporary housing. And nobody knew how long COVID was be. I was thinking that this was going to be a short thing. So literally, instead of a desk, my computer was sitting on a box. Oh, it was amazing. And because the box didn't have anywhere to put my feet, I ended up with a horrific back pain.
Yeah.
Anyway, I suddenly realized, oh, this is not a short-term thing, right? And so I literally spent most of my 3 years with Unilever working remotely and getting that business to grow remotely. That was an incredible experience. But I'll tell you, because I had so much experience doing brand and business turnaround by then, I could focus the learning the new organization, the new norms. Unilever is a very different company than P&G. People think they're similar. They're similar in business, but culturally they're quite different. And so it was an incredible experience. But yeah, so your question about what have I transformed? I've transformed North America-based businesses, global brands. I've accelerated growth in Pandora, which is a jewelry company, as you know. Now I'm here transforming a portfolio of premium beauty brands. I think anything where there is a brand consumer component, I think I have honed a whole set of skills to be able to do that. And so, yes.
That's great. So across your various transformations, which you've clearly, grown a passion for and are very capable in as well, would you say there is a playbook there developing or fully fledged that now that 1, 2, 3 looks like this in most transformations?
Well, so there is, let's talk about the transformation on the people side, and then there's a transformation on the brand side. And
we'll come to the people section in a moment if we can.
Okay.
Let's focus on the commercial brand market.
Okay. So on the commercial brand side, I think the first thing that is critical and that I do naturally and I've done always is to do a really thorough root cause assessment. And so many people skip this step. Mm. And, if you skip this step, you solve the wrong problem. Mm. You end up solving the expedient problem, the popular problem, the easy problem, or whatever you happen to like doing the most. But what you need to do is not do that. What you need to do is really go in deeply and understand what is actually going on here. And normally what you find, because most of these businesses that I've been transforming have been going wrong for a while, is that it started with 1 or 2 things. So by the time you get to it, it's just a confluency of things. It never is just one thing. I think I've told you before the concept of entropy. When I was in engineering school in physics, we learned about entropy. And entropy is what happens to any natural system over time if energy to keep it in order is not constantly applied. So basically, if you're not applying energy to keep the system in order, it will deteriorate into chaos over time. Mm. And that's what happens with these businesses. Mm. Something goes wrong and management starts to lose the grip on something. And before you know it, we lose grip on something else. And before you know it, you got what you got. And you got a long time declining business or an unprofitable business or an unsustainable business. And so I do a deep root cause analysis. We face the reality of what is so, while we also build a vision that we will actually win in the end, that we will get that business back. And how do I do that? Is by going back into the brand's DNA. So if you look at Axe, for example, which is called Lynx in the UK, by the way, for those of you in the UK or Australia who may be listening to this, Lynx Axe. When we went back to that, one of the things that we quickly realized through the assessment is that the brand, it started as a fragrance brand in France in the early 80s. And it was a way to provide a great fragrance deodorant for men. But fragrance was the heart of it. And what happened was the communication in the heydays of Axe was amazing. I don't know if you remember some of these ads, but oh my gosh, some of the best advertising I've ever seen came from this brand and the amazing work that Unilever was doing with it. But the brand had a bit of cheeky angle where, because the focus was fragrance and attraction and humor, it was going into a bit of sexualized humor. Right. So women coming down from poles and women chasing men and angels falling off the sky for the guys. You're smiling. You know what I'm talking about. Beautiful work, but of the different age. Yeah. And then the Me Too movement happened. And all of a sudden, this work was just no longer appropriate, okay? And so the team in charge of the brand, instead of saying, okay, the brand is about fragrance, humor, and attraction, how do we find a modern, relevant way to do that? They pivoted the direction and tried to change the brand for what it was supposed to be about. Honestly, Eric, I've never seen it work. And I think it's math, actually. It's simple. I was also a big studier of statistics. A brand that has grown to be the size of Axe and the global relevance of Axe behind the point of view is proven. That DNA is proven. Some team comes out of nowhere and decides we're going to reposition it to be a masculinity. Seriously? That is a very big bet
Yeah, indeed.
And I think it's a lot wiser to just grab onto what is true about this brand and just find a new way of expressing it.
Yeah. And presumably at some point we ask the consumers what they like as well.
Well, 100%. But here's the thing. This also I learned at P&G. The consumer can only react to what you put in front of them.
Indeed. Yeah.
So we have to be able to get from the consumer, not just what they tell you, but what they cannot tell you. They're dreaming of or they're feeling. So it's an art to really get in there and understand. And I have to say, I was very lucky because Unilever is also a company that deeply understands this, deeply understands the consumer, deeply understands marketing and brands. And so what we did is we took the time to really understand what was going on. And Unilever gave me the space to do that. I mean, I'll tell you what, in the US, it took us some time. In Mexico, it took us a whole year to understand what was going on. It was a different problem in Mexico than in the US, than in Russia, than in India.
Right. So your root cause analysis really paid off then, because different problems, different places. Yeah.
Different problems, different places. But there were some common problems like lack of pricing, lack of innovation. It was a multi-thing problem. But to close on your question about the playbook, diagnosis, apply brand discipline, and then look at the business holistically, because at the end of the day, the financials of the business have to make sense. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the work also we did was on gross margin, making sure that we were selling things that we could then invest in to grow the brand. So P&L shape and all of that is part of the equation. You can't just do the pretty marketing stuff. You also have to do the financials.
You mentioned before the Unilever ecosystem when you were doing the Axe or the Lynx transformation. So what role did your boss at the time, maybe that was one of the people you mentioned before, what was their role in this transformation? Because a lot of people watching, I guess, will have a chairman or a board or some other boss or maybe an investor who's looking over their shoulder as well. What was your experience?
I have to say, I had great bosses in that role. The two guys who hired me from P&G to come join them, my direct boss was Santi. He was running the deodorants business for Unilever for many years. Brilliant man, still a friend and mentor. Mm-hmm. And Sonny Jane, who was his boss, he was running all of Unilever Beauty at the time. And he's the one who I knew from P&G. Mm. Sonny gave me support. Just to know that somebody in a new company knew me and had my back, that was important because it was a new company and a big challenge. And a lot of people thought I would fail because they've tried before and it had not worked, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like I was the first one trying to do this. And so having that trust helped a lot. Santi was great because I've said this to him many times. He could have easily tried to get into my shorts and try to tell me how to do the job. And he didn't. He hired me and he trusted me. And when I needed help, I would go to him and he would challenge me, but generally he trusted me. And honestly, sometimes we hire senior people with a lot of experience and then we try to tell them what to do. And I think it's key that we're super clear on what is the objective. I knew what the objective was. I knew what the metrics were. I knew what the timeline was. I knew the constraints. I had to make the financials work and all of that. But once you know that and you hire somebody you believe is strong, let them do it.
Yeah.
And Santi allowed me that space.
Such an important point. And so many people overlook it, particularly having hired smart talent. You got to give it space. But sometimes you do need help as well. So how did he help you the most? What was the one thing maybe that stands out that he did or said or facilitated that made the biggest impact?
There's a couple areas that, he helped a lot, but there's a couple that come to mind. One of the things that I knew we had to do to create the growth flywheel was to come up with some innovation that could kind of restart the engine of the brand and reposition in consumers' minds that Axe was about fragrance, amazing fragrances. We had a reputation in the US for being, the locker room smell and all that. In the UK, it was never quite as hard, but in the US, there was a bit of a stigma. Mm. We needed to establish the grounding that we had amazing fragrances, really amazing fragrances. So I knew that innovation was going to be part of it. And so I was working on this basically I had to kill a lot of innovation programs that made me very unpopular. And he had to back me up in doing that. And then bringing in this new innovation that required us to come up with a new set of fragrances that were superior to anything else that we had before, but also superior to some prestige fragrances at consumer sniff. So when the consumer sniffed it, they had to think, oh, that smells better than Chanel Bleu or whatever we were using at a benchmark. That was not an easy thing to do. And he supported me in pushing through all of that, the cost of those fragrances, the investment in the product, knowing that I would be able to charge a premium for that. And there was a ton of skepticism on that. And he and the finance leader stood with me in all those calls with the markets. And we really pushed it through. I'll tell you, without that, the turnaround would have been missing a critical leg. And he played a critical role in doing that, that we could afford to do an innovation that was premium, that I would delight the consumer, that would help restart the engine.
That's amazing. That's brilliant. And you need key people like that at key moments, don't you?
You can't do this on your own. There's not such a thing.
And so I presume all this effort resulted in some great financials for the brand.
Profit and growth, Erik. That's my motto. Profitable growth.
Excellent. Now that's great. So we've this is a great example with Axe and Lynx, isn't it? With taking a brand and getting to root cause, being bold in your ambitions and then really driving for success, which happen. But of course, as you alluded to a little while ago, none of that is possible without the right organization and the right people to make it happen.
Yes.
So talk to me about what your experience is there.
At the end of the day, every transformation is more about people than about anything else. Fundamentally, just like we talked, I could have not done any of this without the support of the people above me, but also the support the people next to me and the team underneath. The team ultimately is the engine. The Axe team, I call them the mighty Axe team. Because that team, from their screens through COVID, they were all over the world. We were literally spread all over the world, really pulled together. And so it's about people fundamentally. And so how do I think of people? I always think that it's first the who and then the what. If you have the right people next to you, you will do the right analysis. That's the thing. This is the Jim Collins, actually, philosophy of leadership. I'm a big studier of Jim Collins. And when you have the right people with the right mindset, the right commitment, and the right skill set, you will do the right analysis, and then you'll be able to put the right actions in place. So first is about having the right people. Then there's obviously something around creating the right systems, so that those amazing people, so this is about what are the goals, clear goals, what are the KPIs, what metrics matter, right? Versus what doesn't matter. What is the space that we have to operate? So the framework, I'm working within big companies. What is our framework of operation and the freedom that we have within that framework, and where can we not touch it? Yep. Right? And so creating clarity on goals, on vision, and then the enabling systems and the skill sets that you need, that's critical role of the leadership. And then when you have all of that, is making sure that the teams feel empowered to actually go do their work. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. You hire good people, you give them clear goals, you enable them with systems and framework, and then you let them fly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you let them surprise you, So
when you came into the Axe assignment and you started to do, I'm sure, some of your own analysis on the organization that you were inheriting, how fit was it for transformation? Was it 25% there? Was it 50% there? Was it 90% there? What was the size of the organizational challenge that you faced?
Oh man, you always have to go to the heart of it, Erik. It was a team that was in a lot of pain because the business had not been doing well for quite a long time, and they were there for a long time. Some of them were there 7 years. 8 years. And so some of them were quite in pain. And when a brand is not doing well for a long time, the failure starts to kind of attach itself to you. So people start wondering, are you good?
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of pain. Now, in a typical world, would have I made a few more changes of people? Yes.
Yeah.
I would have. Very transparently. What happened was COVID. And we were not doing that. Mm-hmm. We were not going to let people go because Unilever is a wonderful company. Mm-hmm. And we were not going to do that to people. We were actually helping our employees navigate. Yeah. And so I didn't change anybody.
Okay.
And that's a very different kind of transformation where you do exactly with what you have. Mm-hmm. And you know what? It was an incredible experience at the end because what it did is it got us closer together. We really had to figure out how to leverage each other more. Where did we have to grow? Like I told you, I was unpopular in some cases because I took scope away from some people to give it to other people because now I was optimizing skills with the people I had. Mm-hmm. And so I had to do a few scope changes. I had to do, I promoted a couple people to try to help stabilize the leadership because it was too much of a democratic approach where nobody could make a decision. So I had to make some changes. But generally, the organization was in a lot of pain. And actually, one of the things that I'm most proud of is how by the time I left, that team felt mighty. Mm. We literally call ourselves the Mighty Axe team. And a couple of years later, the business was still growing. I haven't kept up recently, but I believe it's still doing very well. And that is the proof to me that you leave and the business is doing better after you left. That to me, because we're talking about brands here. Mm-hmm. You're not talking about lemonade stands. You know, these are businesses that we want to have growing for another 10, 20, 30, 50 years, 100 years, ideally. So it was not in a good state, Erik, but we were able to band in together and make a few changes and get us there.
But I think there's learning in that, right? So I suppose if, Unilever Group made a decision about not exiting people at that time, but nevertheless, you effected a successful transformation and you had to do what you could do in the circumstances. Back to what you said about what was the sphere of operation, like what could we change and what could we not. So this is one where I guess your hands were tied to a certain extent. So for most transformer CEOs, I think they feel they want to get to the organization quite quickly and make sure they have the right people around them. And usually that involves some changes and their hands are not tied. Yeah.
Yes.
So I suppose what would the learning be? What would you share with people that says maybe that isn't the only way and maybe you can do what you did and still get a great outcome? What would you say to that?
I can't make a one case,
a
theory, but I would tell you that I did feel my hands were tied, but they were tied for a good reason. Mm-hmm. And I have so much respect for that, you know. I think it was the right thing to do. In general, I do think that if you want to affect faster, more, I would say effective transformation, you ought to be able to make some changes. What I just think is sometimes people change for the sake of change. I think it's got to be about, at the end of the day, skill sets and talent and making sure you have enough people left who know what needs to remain. Because with Axe, what was really great is because the team all stayed, but I was new to the company. Mm-hmm. They could make sure I didn't break things that I shouldn't break.
Yeah.
So if you come in and you don't know the thing, the brand, the business, the history, the customer, and you get rid of everybody who matters, who has that institutional thread, that knowledge? And there has to be a balancing act, Erik. So I wouldn't say that it's good to be so constrained, but I also think that balance is right in most things.
Yep.
And in this case, that knowledge, that love for the brand that this team had is something that I would have not had I changed a lot of it.
Great point. So when you were hiring talent into the Axe team, what were the top 3 things you were looking for from people joining, when you did have
Well, I wasn't hiring.
Yeah.
I didn't have any space
Not at all throughout your tenure.
I think I had one person.
Okay. Okay, so let's turn it into a wish list question. If there were 3 things that you would aspire to have, what would they be?
When I've had many other experiences I can go back to.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about another one.
I tend to hire based on This is the diagnosis of what the business needs.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we can do extremely well with who we have and what we have. What is missing there's a gap, or what is missing from an opportunity that we're not able to leverage right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's based on skills and experiences to either close a gap or unlock an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, in this role that I'm in right now, we just onboarded a head of international business development, because that was an area that I wanted to double down on and I needed more skill set. Earlier in the year, I brought in somebody who had extreme experience in transformations, startup to company integrations, because we are doing that every day.
Mm-hmm.
And we had lost the talent that was doing that. I thought, not only am I going to replace that talent, I want to make sure this is somebody who has even more experience than me, more hands-on experience at integrations and divestitures, because this is something we need. So it's always based on skill kind of opportunity. And then I look for attitude. People say like experience. So if you're looking at talent, experience plus skills.
Yep.
Very important. I think attitude is the big amplifier. It's a multiplier or a divider. Somebody with a great attitude multiplies. Somebody with a bad attitude is just bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always look for people who are hungry to win, but also willing to look for win-win with others. It's a team sport, what
Absolutely.
we do here. So people who are able to set direction and be no nonsense, but also team player. It's not about the solo wolf thing, because that just doesn't work in organizations like ours.
Yeah.
But Erik, I also look for people who challenge me, because honestly, I only care about the business winning. At the end, I don't care whose idea it is. I generally could not care less whose idea it is. I want the business to win. That's my juice. That's what I get excited about. And so, I'm very happy to let others be the smarter one in the room.
Fabulous. And what about leadership and culture as well? And were your hands tied in that regard as well at Axe or in other places? Not
on Axe. No. It was Unilever. No, I didn't feel that. The team was so passionate. They loved the brand genuinely. And I'll tell you what, another thing that I discovered early in my career is that humans need a why. Especially when things get hard, you need a why. A paycheck is not enough. Mm-hmm. We need a why. And on Axe, I found the why very quickly. That team wanted this beautiful brand back on its feet. It was like a personal mission. Some of them have been there now 10 years. Mm-hmm. They just love and breathe the brand. And that why of we're going to get back Axe, we used to say we're going to get our mojo back. That rallying cry was incredibly, energizing. What we had to do is match root cause analysis, priorities, discipline, brand focus, media planning, all the components, general, gross margin, margin, kind of like the basic foundational business stuff. Marry that with this kind of passion, and then you're unstoppable. Problem is sometimes you lose the foundations. Like I told you earlier, little thing goes wrong here, and then we start making bad stuff here, and then we start chasing stuff in the short term, and before we know it, it's all a mess.
Yeah.
Entropy takes over,
Yeah. And what did you do to light that passion again, to the mojo? What did you do? What was some of maybe you have some stories or some...
Yeah, so I remember at the beginning, because they were very skeptical of me. I was just coming in from the outside. I don't look cool like Axe. Axe is cool. And I am like corporate mom, and I was new to Unilever, and I was the first man to run Axe. Sorry, the first woman to run Axe.
I'm with you.
The first woman to run it. It had all been men before. Okay. So there was so many things that were different about me. Mm-hmm. And I remember realizing how these guys, they have no reason to trust me. And Erik, I'm also not like somebody who, I don't sugarcoat things either. I believe in kindness and respect. But for example, in one of our early meetings, we had 1 month where I was in the job a few months, and we had a job where we grew turnover a little bit, and everybody was celebrating. And I said, yeah, but did we gain share? Huh? What is that? I was like, please do not celebrate a little bit of growth unless you know that you win share, because that was just the wind. That was not us, and so I remember that conversation, and people were like, joy killer, So I wasn't trying to kill joy, but I was trying to build some discipline. And so in thinking, business thinking, if our problem is we've been losing share and you're celebrating a little bit of growth with no share gain, what are we doing? The eyes on the ball, right? And so that kind of thing made me realize, like, I need to make a very proactive effort to gain the trust and respect of this team. Because, let's be honest, people don't trust and respect you because you got a title. No. That only makes the expectation higher, but that doesn't gain you any respect. And so I spent a lot of time listening to the teams. One of the first things I do when I arrive, and I actually did that here too, is I have a set of questions that I ask every single person in my reporting line and often one level below. And I did a lot of listening to people about where was the brand, what did they thought was working, what was not working, what if they could change anything, really trying to understand the organization. And then I debriefed those learnings with them, and we got to chart it all together as a leadership team. And that exercise, I think, kind of built some common ground. The other exercise I'll never forget, this is right before COVID lockdown. I had a chart, one of those, what do you call them? Those things where you write on the
whiteboard,
on the paper. Yeah, flipboard. And I said to the team, guys, we need to do a lot of transformation. The business is not working. Profitability is not where it needs to be. The growth is not, the brand is not where it needs to be. But what are the things that we cannot mess up? What must we protect with our dear life? And I think that exercise was actually, honestly, super important, not just for me, but for the team. Because in that exercise, I was acknowledging that there was a lot of beautiful there. There was a lot of beautiful things that they had done, that they've nurtured, that I wasn't going to just throw out with the bathwater. I wasn't going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say in the US.
Yep.
And I honestly thought that was a pivotal moment. And we had a lot of those kind of conversations over the couple of years I was there.
Amazing. Very good. And what about was AI a feature in recent transformations and technology impact on what you were doing and the effect on the organization?
More recently, I think there's obviously a lot of it that we're using to make our marketing work more effective. And also we're doing a lot of it's amazing what you can do now creatively with AI. So all that technical stuff has started to impact. I can't tell you yet that it has dramatically altered how I do a transformation or how I see a transformation, but it's definitely a massive enabler. Personally, I can crunch through analysis a lot faster. So in the diagnosis phase of the business and in the performance management parts of the business, it's a game changer because it can really quickly help you hone in. Because, sometimes you have such complex data sets. And as a leader, I like to know the stuff myself. So I'm not the analyst, okay? I don't have time anymore. I used to be an analyst many years ago when I was younger in the business, but now I don't do the analyst work myself, but I want to know what's going on. And it's really helping me kind of hone in a lot faster.
Very good. And what about just kind of pulling this together with, what proportion of a successful transformation is based on or dependent on getting your organization, your people and organizational elements right?
I think all of it. I think that, I'm reading this book by Brené Brown called Strong Ground. And she talks about how transformation, she had a definition of transformation that I thought was amazing. I'm actually going to find it in my notes and I'm going to read it to you because it's such a good quote. She's quoting somebody called David Whyte, who I think is a poet and philosopher. And she says, transformation is to hit present reality at high velocity and watch it break apart at impact. I thought, oh my God, that resonates so much with me, because when you're transforming something, the first thing that you need to do, to be honest, besides the kind of the assessment I was talking about, which was the root cause analysis, is you're going to have to break a lot of stuff. You're going to have to break all the things that are not serving you. So projects, habits, team dynamics, and sometimes you have to change people. You have to break a lot of eggs. You have to make changes that are uncomfortable. And that's all people.
Yep.
And as you do that, you also have to generate faith that all that breaking is actually towards the creation of something beautiful, stronger, more sustainable, more fun for all of us to be part of. Mm-hmm. And so this constant, both being the engine of change and the holder of faith and belief in the people, it's critical. So it's all about people at the end, Erik, not only because the people are the ones that do the stuff, but because an organization that is not aligned emotionally, I believe, is not able to make lasting, massive transformation stick. That's what I believe.
So true.
So it's all about people at the end, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's great. That's a nice link to talking about transformer CEOs. So we've cantered through various things, but what is the unique DNA that you think of when you think of, your own role, your new role in Unilever here, and other CEOs around the world who've got a transformational brief, whether that's AI driven, market driven, brand driven, financially driven, whatever. What is the DNA, the common DNA that leads to a successful transformer CEO?
I have been reflecting a lot on that lately, and as I entered this role, in terms of who do I want to be? Mm. I've been preparing myself for a long time, skills-wise and all that, emotionally, for this kind of role. But the key question to ask yourself every day is, what kind of CEO do I want to be? Who do I want to be? And so I've been reflecting on it. And so I actually jotted down a few things. The concept of it for me, if I were to elevate it at the top, is I think transformational CEOs have to be masters of paradox. What do I mean by that? Before I get into my little list of what the characteristics are, let me ask you, have you heard of the Stockdale paradox from Jim Collins' books?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
He talks about the Stockdale paradox is about being able to face reality squarely, as harsh as it is. Just face it, face the facts squarely, while maintaining unwavering faith that you will prevail at the end. Mm-hmm. The context of how he came up with that, Mr. Stockdale, is very dramatic. He was in a prisoner of war kind of situation. But I find that paradox is quite applicable to many of the things that we have to go through when we're doing transformation. Back to the definition I read you earlier, when you do transformation, you're crashing reality. You're breaking it. And that causes a lot of disruption for people. It's very destabilizing, right? Mm-hmm. And so I believe that the transformational CEOs are the people who are able to hold certain paradoxes. So certain truths that may seem opposing, but actually are both required at the same time. And so I've jotted a few. The first one I wrote is courageous yet humble. So you need to be able to take a path and know that there's no certainty, that you may fail, but you make that choice. You make the tough choices with conviction. You bring people with you, and you do that while still sharing credit freely. Mm-hmm. So you may lead conviction, you may take all the risk, but you are humble in that you know that nothing can happen just by you. That combination of courage and humility is, I think, critical in this. Another one is strategic, yet also hands-on. So you need to be able to look at the whole picture, the big picture, simplify complexity, figure out what are the right strategic choices that you need to make. Where do we want to go? What is the big vision? But then you need to be hands-on and make sure that you're building the systems, the skills, that you're putting in the right people, and that you're keeping everybody focused on the metrics that matter every day. Mm-hmm. So it's strategic, but it's also hands-on, right? I think for a transformation, you have to be creative and disciplined. A lot of people think about the discipline part of transformation. But creativity is critical because in a transformation, you're breaking. But if you only break, you don't transform. You need to then create something that is extraordinarily better than what you had before. Otherwise, what's the point of transformation? So I think balancing the discipline, the rigor, with creativity and being able to, not just yourself, but give others the space to create within a framework is really important. I think because the daily task of transformation is so gut-wrenching, there's so much up and down that you experience emotionally, you need to be unflappable, yet human. So stay calm under pressure, grounded on your values when things get really bad or wrong or difficult. Things don't go the way you want them to go. Staying grounded and not losing your mind and, and becoming somebody who's misaligned with your values. So while being human, so you can be unflappable, but you're still being human and keeping the emotional connection with your team. So I'm not talking about being unflappable and detached and cold. I'm talking being unflappable, but still connected, right? Because you have to keep the faith, right? As we talked earlier. The fifth one I would say is uncompromising yet demonstrating strong values. So we have to hold the standard of excellence and performance, right? And how do we do that while we exhibit caring and respectful behaviors for people? So, for example, when you do transformations, there are things you have to kill. You have to kill some projects. Some people, to them, this is their life's work. Well, you have to do it because it is what's required, the right thing to do. But how do you do it in a way that is respectful and caring for the people who've been putting their heart and soul into that, right? When you have a talent that is no longer fit for purpose, for what you need, how do you tell them that? And how do you help them move on if this is no longer the right place while being human and caring in the process? I'll take a side. I don't know if you remember when we were working together, Erik, at some point I came to you and I said, Erik, it's so hard. I know I need to let go of this person, but my God, it's hard. And you reminded me that I need to separate the what, making the change, from the how I did it. And that was extremely helpful, by the way. And I think it ties back to this. It's being uncompromising. It's on the what, I must do this, with the how I do it, which is demonstrating strong values and taking care of people. And the last one is accountable yet synergistic. A lot of people think that being accountable means being a solo wolf. I'm the one and it's all up to me. The mastery comes from being accountable, but yet being able to synergize with others and make the pie bigger versus just taking a bigger piece of it for yourself. And I think that's one that often also gets ignored. So those are 6 kind of paradoxes that I've seen the most effective transformational leaders hold. And I aspire every day to hold myself, right? Like I'm human. And so I have my feelings, but those are the things that I aspire to and I check myself against.
That's great, MC. And I've never heard it expressed as paradoxes before. So I think you bring in a new angle to this as well. And I love the language as well. There's a real richness in the language you're using to describe these challenges that CEOs face. If there's one or two on that list that stand out for you, maybe because they're deal breakers or they're, you just couldn't do this job without this one or that one. Or maybe one you have a deep personal experience of. What would that be?
I would say that strategic and hands-on, it's non-negotiable. If you just do the strategy part, but you don't create the systems, the skills, you don't give people the right KPIs, you're just pipe dreaming. If you're extremely good at creating systems and that, but you don't have a vision worth anything, you also don't go anywhere. So I think that one is kind of like table stakes. You must to be effective at transformation. I also think that uncompromising yet strong values. Uncompromising because this job requires so many tough choices. We didn't get to a place where you need a transformation by things being done right.
Yeah.
You got here because we were doing a lot of easy stuff, taking a lot of shortcuts, and now you're going to have to clean that up. And to clean that up, you have to be willing to break some stuff, upset some people, and really hold the new standards. So you have to be very uncompromising. But the other thing that you really need is amazing people. And I don't know your experience recently, but my experience is that amazing people don't want to work for jerks. Great people want to work for people they respect and trust. And I think that's why uncompromising with strong values is another. So I think those two paradoxes for me are non-negotiable, really.
Brilliant. And again, I'm hearing your authenticity shine through it as well. There's just some realities to being a transformer CEO, which you have to face and you have to be pretty good at to pull this off, right? And there's no shortcuts. No. Shortcuts take us back to the fact that 70% of transformations don't work, and this might well be one of the reasons why they're not working. So for younger talent, or not younger, let's say less experienced talent, who maybe one day aspires to be a transformer CEO, and they're thinking, well, that's great. What an amazing list. I can do something with it. How do I get these experiences? And it makes me think of your story about, being blocked for promotion at P&G and what, you went sideways and did some creative thinking. What would your advice be to SVPs or even, smaller company CEOs who are, staring down the barrel of a transformation gun and thinking, should I, shouldn't I?
I say that it's gut-wrenching work, but it's the most rewarding work one can do. And so in terms of, I think you were asking me about what experiences prepare you for it. I'd say that it's a combination of don't chase titles, chase experiences and growth. Mm-hmm. I think, you can chase titles in the long run, but I say the most important thing is, are you building a wide set of relevant experiences? Because this job is not narrow at all. You're dealing with all kinds of things every day. You're dealing with cash issues one moment, and you're dealing with a consumer issue the next moment. And then you're dealing with a legal issue, and then you're dealing with whatever. So you want to be a transformational CEO or any CEO, you got to have a broad set of experiences. So I would say chase experiences that broaden and grow your skill set. I would also say that you got to do some internal work. You asked me earlier about the role of my family, and I said they're not only my first love, they're also my grounding. Because in these roles, you are both the cause or the engine of disruption. You are the one saying, we got to change this. But also you are the one having to hold faith. That is emotionally intense work. And it requires a lot of relationship building, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of holding yourself to account of who you're being, how you're being with people. Oftentimes you don't know what the right decision is. And the data can help you. So you're making those decisions, even if you're like, I don't know exactly what the right one is. My team is divided. I need to make a call. So you need a really strong foundation of who you are. What are you committed to in broader sense to hold you steady? Mm-hmm. For me, my family holds me steady. Eric, I'll tell you, in one of those days, this is a few years ago, where I was having a really tough day. I'm a human. I was having a really tough day. I came home and I was raging. And my husband, who's been with me through this journey, listened to me rage and then said, okay, so now what are you going to do about it? And he said, are you committed to keeping raging, or are you committed to moving forward? And we have to have around us people who can help us do that. It may be a husband or a spouse or a brother or a teacher or a coach, or we need people around us also who can help find our center and our commitments. And my husband reminded me, what am I committed to, which is positive impact, not to raging and blaming and being angry. Mm-hmm. So that's the other thing I would say. As you take on this work, ground yourself and make sure you have people to help bring you back, because you will need it.
Yeah,
and what you don't want to do is rage in front of your team, or rage, even worse, rage at your team, which some people do.
Yeah, indeed. Not a recipe for success, as we know.
No.
Yeah. So a few questions to close out on, MC. This is a bit of fun as well. So, Transformer CEOs, are they born or bred?
Ha. I believe they're mostly bred, but if you are born with strong analytical skills, brain processing power, charm, at ease connecting with people, you have a leg up.
Very cool. Very cool. Are Transformer CEOs for one time or for always?
No, I think it's chapters. I think it's chapters. I think businesses, organizations go through chapters. And I am a Transformer CEO for a certain kind of transformation. There are other people who would be better suited for other kinds of transformations. I think that there is a commonality in the values, as we talked, and the experiences, but there's also different stages. You know, there are some businesses which are in maturity. And let me just give you an example of a transformation I wouldn't want to do. There's a business that has been going for many years, and now we want to dismantle and transform it into a, let's say, we're going to sell it for parts. We're going to sell the brands. And that's not me. It's transformation. But it's not transformation that would feed my heart and keep the enormous amount of energy I have to put into that. It wouldn't feed that. So I think there's different moments also in companies' life stages that require different kinds of
things. So that's a great point. And just building on that point, so is there a brand or a business out there you would, outside Unilever, that you would dearly love to get your hands on one day in the future?
Eric, what are you doing? I'm not looking for a job.
I know you're not looking for a job.
Well, I love, let's talk about what I love. I love consumer brands. I love beautiful brands that have aesthetic at their heart.
Yep.
I love brands that have global reach but have lost their connection with culture. I love brands that have a DNA but somehow is not being expressed. I love brands. You can see that. I love brands. I also love, Pandora taught me how much I enjoy retail. Honestly, Eric, I did not realize what a great juice I would get out of the retail business, because I am full of energy. You probably might detect a little bit of that. And the retail business is so alive. And you get feedback every day. And the closeness to your consumer, I mean, my God, literally at Pandora, every interaction.
Millions of times.
That is not, that is in a store is touching a customer. I love that. So yeah, that kind of business I love.
I get it. That's fine. What about the demand for Transformer CEOs in the next 5 years? Higher, lower, or about the same?
I think higher. If you look at, you just have to look at the news every day. Let me just talk about my industry for a minute.
Yep.
I was in Prestige Beauty years ago. I left Prestige Beauty for about 10 years. I played in other industries. I played in consumer health. I played in deodorants. I played in jewelry, different places. Came back to Prestige Beauty for this role. And what I found was a dramatic different place. And it really happened in the last couple of years. Consumers are questioning value of luxury and premium brands more than ever. The channels have changed dramatically. I mean, you know what's happened with how we connect with customers. I mean, TikTok is a massive phenomenon. And in fact, it's how most of our consumers, maybe not most, but many of our consumers are even finding out about brands. So big change in how you connect with consumer, big change in the consumer value perception. The channels are blurring. Before, there was such a clear line between what was prestige and luxury and what was more mass. Now there's masstige, there's all this stuff that is blurring. And then the wonderful winds of growth that were there in China and US have almost died down. So it's a completely different play than it was years ago. And when that happens, new tools, new ways of thinking, new creativity, new visions are required. And I'm only speaking about prestige beauty. You see what's happening with fashion. You see what's happening with luxury. It's happening across. So I think there will be, at least in the brand world, there will be more need for transformational, in the retail world as well, more need for transformational CEOs. I also think that the world is not going to slow down. So AI now, okay, it's not going to slow down. So the skill set that it takes you to transform in a changing industry is quite similar to the skills that take you to transform in a change like what AI will bring. It's new ways of thinking, but it's also honestly fundamentally about leadership and people and how to move people through transformations.
Brilliant. And final question, when it comes to reward, do transformer CEOs deserve a premium?
I hope so. I mean, it should, because the risk you take is higher, right? But the thing with me is that I don't like anything steady state. So I enjoy that kind of inflection, as I was telling you before.
Yeah.
So I think that probably there is a premium. I haven't been benchmarking this, Erik, so I probably should do that. But I would say that reward in general, not just for CEOs, but for teams, needs to be looked at because people's values are also changing. What people are valuing and what motivates them is changing. But when you have a transformation like this, you know how many times I heard people say to me, why would you take that job? You could fail. I'm like, well, it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody, and not everybody wants to take that kind of personal risk, because when you take a transformation, there's a chance you fail. And even if you don't fail, I will tell you, there's a lot of micro failures along the way. I experience micro failures all the time. The difference is that I say to myself, okay, you lost that battle, but you're going to win the war, MC. Just keep faith. But there's micro failures all the time. And if you're uncomfortable with looking bad or having people question you, or just don't come here, don't play this game, because you are going to have micro failures along the way, that your job is actually to learn from them and come out better. So you have to reward that kind of risk taking in some way. But for me, part of the reward is that, God, when you see something go that way, oh man, it is worth every ounce of energy for me. I get such a high.
Absolutely. It's amazing, isn't it? It's great to see. MC, I want to say a massive thank you. I knew this was going to be energetic and very personal and very open and full of great inspiration for folks. So I'm really grateful to you for taking a big chunk of time out in what I know is a hugely busy and demanding transformational CEO role at Unilever. So thank you very much for being part of Transformer CEOs.
Erik, I am the one who's grateful. I am super excited about what you're doing here. I think you're doing a service to both people and the industries that we play in. And I'm super honored that you brought me in early into your program. So thank you so much. I've enjoyed the chat.
Thank you.